All right, Step, we're talking 26A, and yeah, I mean, the big shakeup is Fulshear. Not only did they graduate a lot of guys, they also graduated a coach who moved on. Who do we got back in there at coaching, and can they have that same kind of dominance they had last year?
Well, I don't know if they're going to have the same kind of dominance, but I still think they have enough to possibly win this district. As Stephen Hill takes over, and Stephen Hill was over state champion last year at Randall. He was an assistant coach at Randall, co-offensive coordinator, a really great dynamic offensive mind. He, if you remember back when Grant Gunnell was at St. Pius, they were slinging it around all over the place. Stephen Hill was the head coach.
All right.
This is a guy who likes so. Fulshear is going to look a lot different this year.
Okay.
We're not going to see a whole lot of wide
sweeps.
And sweeps from Fulshear. It's going to be a lot of airing it out. And they've got the personnel to get it done. Rylan Forks is back at quarterback. He did, you think of Fulshear and how much they run the ball. Forks did throw for almost 1,800 yards last year and 20 touchdowns. His number one target is going to be Mike Brown, 10 receiving touchdowns last year. I think he could have a big year. Trey Giametta, the tight end, could be due for a big year. And they've got an offensive lineman, Righteous Spencer, one of the best names in the state of Texas.
I like that.
My guy Righteous there on the Fulshear offensive line. Fulshear offensively is going to be good. Stephen Hill's a guru. Now I think there'll be some adjusting, but I think Fulshear's going to be dynamic on offense. The defense is where they had the questions. They graduated heavy on the defensive side of the ball last year. They're going to have to find some guys to kind of replace that. Evan Ferns, the linebacker, and David O'Banner are kind of the two guys that you expect to really kind of take that leadership role on for a young Chargers defense. But I still think they're the team to beat. I just don't know if they're going to be 12-1 good.
Exactly, because last year it was. I mean, it wasn't even funny. We were going through our podcast, and it was Fulshear, and it's like we almost skipped over 26A because they had such a dominance factor there.
Yeah.
We stopped to talk about one dude, though, and I'm not – look, I'm 54, so I'm not super old, but my pops used to be playing these songs from the 60s and 70s. The one song was called Johnny Angel, and I can remember it in my head because he'd be vacuuming up the house. He'd be playing this song, and it sounds like my man from Straight Jesuit could play right into that song. It'd be like, Johnny Abair, how I loved him. I was like, they must be singing some Johnny Abair down there when that dude's just rolling over 2,000 yards like it's
2,000. He rolled over 3,000.
3,000 like it was nothing.
He had one of the best single season rushing totals in the history of Texas high school football across. I mean, he was up there. I think top 10 season last year for him as a junior. Over 3,500 yards rushing, 40 touchdowns. One of the best single season performances in the state of Texas. You expect him this year, though, that people they're gonna be gunning for him. He's gonna face a lot of 8 man boxes there at Straight Jesuit. So I think the Crusaders, Coach Fekoch, is gonna have to open things up a little bit in order to give Abair some running lanes, because I think people are going to be like, we're going to stop. We're come hell or high water. We are going to make somebody else other than John Abair beat us. And that's the key. And it's easier said than done. He had a great year. Strake had an amazing run last year, getting into the third round of the playoffs. But they're going to have to develop some other playmakers to go along with Abair just to keep defenses honest. That's going to be tougher because they're going to have to break in a new quarterback. They're going to have to find a guy to lead the way offensively. So, a lot of questions for Straight Jesuit. Defensively, Wesley Stewart, I like him at linebacker quite a bit. Their defensive lineman, McGregor Byers, a really underrated player there in the Houston area, 6'5", 260, had 11 sacks last year. So I think Strake on defense should be a little bit better. Offensively, they got the guy back, but they got to find the pieces around him. Offensive line's got some questions as well. I still think they have enough as the number 2 team in this district. Don't think they have enough to get past Fulshear, but you never know with John Abair. He can win you a game by himself. He's that dynamic and that explosive of a back. He's a workhorse too. He can take a heavy workload and keep on trucking.
And that story we did on last year, he don't even mess with no social media, no cell phones. He didn't mess with none of that stuff. All he messes with is getting in there and getting the work done.
He's a baller. He's a dog, man. He's
being quiet and let people pat him on the back, but he ain't worried about it.
Yeah.
What else we have in this district? And when you talk about Strake winning or finishing second, or maybe not enough to go, do they have enough to win a playoff game, or does anybody the rest of the way down from 2 to 7 have enough to win a playoff game when they get in?
It's be tough. I mean, the by-district matchup, is tough. But I mean, Strake won 2 playoff games last year.
True.
So it's not impossible. So I I think you look at it in the number 3 team. I think Foster was kind of the real surprise story last year. Shane Hanks did a great job kind of getting them turned back around. They had really struggled since Fulsher had opened up and kind of started to pull away some of that talent. But Foster got into the playoffs last year at 4-7. They were winless in non-district. They won 4 district games, were able to finish 3rd. They got 15 starters back, so I do think they have enough to still be in that playoff contention. Riley Blanton is a guy to keep an eye on. They're going to get creative with him. He might even see some time at quarterback. Langston Hogan and is a good wide receiver to keep an eye on as well. 2 good linebackers, Eli Smith and Jashiel Ivey, are kind of the keys for that Falcons defense. But I think Hanks did a really underrated job there with the Falcons last year, getting them back into playoff contention. And I think they're still a good bet for the 3 spot. The real question here is going to be who gets that 4 spot. Yeah. Last year Elsick kind of snuck up late and got it. Even though they were 2-9, they were able to get into the playoffs. Shea Rodriguez has done a nice job there at his alma mater, getting them back competitive, and we're able to get into the playoffs. But I think George Ranch could be the team ready to get back into the playoffs. They struggled last year in Casey Vogt's first year. They've got 16 starters back, 8 on both sides of the ball. If I had to pick, I would say George. I think it could be, A-Leaf could be shut out of the playoffs this year because I think you're going to get the 3 Lamar Consolidateds and Strake into the postseason. So I like George Ranch to get back into the playoff contention and get that 4 seed. If there's a team that I think that could upset that, it might be Hastings. Michael Carter enters into his 2nd year, so you always see that year 2 bump when a guy takes over late. Year 1, they struggle a little bit, but I think in year 2, Coach Carter is going to have the Bears ready to go as a team to challenge for the playoffs. Madden Harvey, their quarterback, is a 3-year starter. He's been around the block. He's started 20 games for Hastings. I think he's ready for a big year. Xavier Obiero Hyder on the offensive line and Quentin Walters. They give the Bears kind of some great building blocks in that offense to kind of sprinkle in some young skill talent. So I think if there's a team from A-Leaf that could sneak into the playoffs, I think it's Hastings. But I think Elsick will be in the mix as well. And then you got kind of Taylor rounding it out. They've struggled recently. I think they'll be a little bit better this year under Sean Gray, but they're still a ways off. So I think this is not a strong district top to bottom, but I think it will be competitive in those different tiers. I think the top 3 teams will be competitive with each other, right. And I think those bottom 4 will all be competitive, and it could make for some interesting games late in the season as we're trying to get teams are jockeying for playoff positioning.
Fight for that 4 spot. All right, well, you kind of already said it, but give me 1 through 7 as we say goodbye to 26A.
Let's go Fulsher 1. Let's go Strake 2. We're going to go Foster 3. We're going to go George Ranch 4. I'm going to go Hastings 5, Elsick 6, and Taylor rounding it out at 7.
Taylor coming at 7. All right, well, next week we're going into Fort Bend. We're going to talk some 21-6A, see what's going on. We know who likes to win that district title. We'll see if you're predicting them to win it again, because that's all they do over there at Ridge. But we'll talk to you next week. Step